There exists within you a force, subtle yet unyielding, often overlooked by those around you. It does not demand your attention, nor does it announce its presence with fanfare. It is simply there, silent. In a world obsessed with noise, where voices compete for recognition and opinions are hurled with little thought, silence stands as a powerful ally of the wise. Those who master it do not fade into obscurity. No, they rise to a level where their presence is undeniable, their actions unassailable. Silence is not merely the absence of sound. It is the presence of purpose. It is the space in which true listening takes place, where you hear not only others but your own inner voice, the one that guides, clarifies, and refines. It is the pause before the leap, the stillness before the storm, the thought before the word. When you embrace silence, you give yourself the gift of reflection, time to sharpen your mind, to weigh decisions carefully, and to prepare your every step. Silence guards your thoughts, shields your ambitions from the hasty judgments of others, and trains your words to carry weight and meaning. Understand this. Silence is not a sign of weakness. The most powerful forces in nature, the tiger before its strike, the storm before its fury, rely on it. And similarly, the greatest breakthroughs, the most significant achievements, are often conceived not in the clamor of the crowd, but in the quiet of conviction. In silence, you observe, you learn, you plot a course that others cannot see, while the world around you remains distracted by its noise. And when the time arrives to act, let your results speak louder than any words ever could. Silence is strength, not weakness. In a world that often confuses volume with value, the quiet individual is frequently misunderstood. Yet history and experience reveal that true power lies not in how loudly we speak, but in how deeply we think before we do. Silence is not the absence of ability or opinion. It is the mark of control, discipline, and confidence. It takes far more inner strength to hold back your words than to release them carelessly. When someone remains silent in moments of provocation or chaos, it is not because they have nothing to say. It is because they have chosen to rise above noise and impulse. The strong are not always the ones who talk the most. In fact, those who constantly speak often do so out of fear of being ignored, of losing relevance, of feeling small. But the one who can sit calmly in a room full of noise and not feel the need to prove their presence is the one who commands the greatest respect. People begin to notice that silence. They begin to feel the power in it. It becomes magnetic. It draws attention without begging for it. That is true strength. When you practice silence, especially during high-pressure situations, you give yourself an edge. You gain time to think, to observe, and to choose your response rather than react emotionally. This is a trait shared by great leaders, strategists, and thinkers throughout history. Their silence wasn't emptiness. It was calculation. It was understanding the weight of their words and choosing to speak only when their words would truly matter. Speaking less doesn't mean you know less. It often means you know enough to wait until the right moment. Moreover, silence creates an air of mystery. When you don't reveal everything you think or feel, you control how much others can predict or influence you. That kind of restraint is power. It keeps you in control of your emotions and your energy. It keeps you focused. There is also a psychological edge in silence. When others rush to fill a quiet space with their assumptions or insecurities, you remain centered. You don't play by their tempo, you move when you're ready. And most importantly, silence allows for listening, not just to others, but to yourself. The inner voice, the one that gets drowned out in a loud world, becomes clearer when you embrace silence. That voice is your instinct, your wisdom, your truth. To follow it, you must first hear it. And to hear it, you must be quiet long enough to listen. True strength is not about overpowering others with words. It's about mastering yourself in moments when it would be easier to explode, argue, or prove a point. Silence, then, is not passive. It is active restraint. It is courage. It is power held in reserve. And when wielded wisely, it speaks louder than anything you could ever say. Listening is a superpower. In a society driven by the desire to speak, to be seen, and to make noise, the ability to truly listen has become rare and therefore incredibly powerful. It is more than simply hearing words. It is about absorbing meaning, understanding emotions, reading between the lines, and sensing what's not being said. While most people are focused on how they will respond, the listener holds an advantage, the full picture. They gather more information, more insight, and more control by simply staying present and paying attention. When you listen, you allow people to reveal themselves. In their words, tone, and body language, they disclose their values, fears, desires, and intentions, often without realizing it. A person who listens can learn far more about a situation or a person than someone who dominates a conversation. Listening builds trust. People gravitate toward those who make them feel heard. When you listen, you validate someone's experience, and in doing so, you create connection, loyalty, and influence. Most conflicts, whether in business or in relationships, are not caused by a lack of intelligence, but by a lack of listening. People want to feel understood, and when they don't, walls go up. A true listener breaks those walls without raising their voice. Listening also increases your emotional intelligence. You begin to sense not just what people are saying, but how they're feeling. You develop empathy and can respond with greater wisdom, even when emotions are high. This ability to pause, observe, and tune in can change the outcome of conversations, negotiations, and even your own internal battles. While others react, the listener responds. That difference is everything. The listener sees patterns. They notice what others miss. They pick up on details that slip by in a rush to speak. And with that knowledge comes power. Power to influence, to lead, to protect, and to grow. Great leaders are great listeners. They don't assume they know everything. They seek input, ask questions, and create space for others to speak. They know that the smartest person in the room is often the one learning the most, not the one trying to prove it. Listening also trains the mind to slow down, to be still, and to process. In that space of stillness, ideas can form, creativity can emerge, and intuition can rise. When you stop interrupting the world begins to speak to you in ways you never noticed. Opportunities, lessons, and breakthroughs often come in the quiet moments, the ones filled not with noise but with awareness. To listen is to be powerful, not passive. It is a choice, a skill, and a weapon in a world that undervalues it. Those who master it rise above the noise. They learn faster, connect deeper, and act smarter. While the world is busy trying to be heard, the listener is quietly collecting the knowledge that turns into wisdom, and the wisdom that turns into unstoppable strength. Silence sharpens thinking in a way that no external tool or method ever can. In a world flooded with distractions, constant communication, and endless streams of information, the mind rarely gets the space it needs to process, reflect, and create. Silence is not simply the absence of noise, it is the presence of clarity. When everything around you quiets down, your thoughts begin to line up, your focus deepens, and your mental fog starts to clear. It is in silence that the scattered pieces of your mind begin to fall into place. Thinking requires space. It requires stillness. The mind is like water. When it's agitated, it becomes cloudy and unclear. But when you let it settle, the picture becomes clear. Silence allows that settling to happen. It creates a mental environment where ideas can form and develop without being interrupted by external noise or internal chaos. In silence, you can observe your own thoughts, trace them back to their roots, and determine which ones are useful and which ones are distractions. This self-awareness is what separates reactive people from reflective ones. Most people fill silence with unnecessary conversation, entertainment, or noise because they're uncomfortable being alone with their thoughts. But that discomfort is a doorway to deeper thinking. When you learn to sit in silence, you learn to face your thoughts. And through that process, you begin to think critically and creatively. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in business, science, art, and life came not during moments of noise, but during moments of quiet solitude, on walks, in isolation, or in meditation. Silence opens up a pathway for your subconscious mind to speak. That inner voice, the one that often gets drowned out, becomes louder and more coherent. Moreover, silence allows you to mentally rehearse situations, prepare for decisions, and evaluate consequences before taking action. It becomes a training ground for better choices. You start to see patterns you once missed, notice emotions influencing your judgment, and recognize which thoughts are grounded in truth and which are based on fear or impulse. The clarity that silence brings is what enables wise, strategic thinking. Without that clarity, decisions become reactive and scattered. When you cultivate silence regularly, even for a few moments a day, you begin to experience a shift. Your mind becomes more organized, your ideas become more refined, and your perspective expands. You begin to think in layers, seeing beyond the surface of problems and understanding the deeper structures beneath them. Silence doesn't just give you better answers, it helps you ask better questions, and the quality of your life is often determined not by the answers you find, but by the questions you ask. In a world that rewards towards fast answers and constant activity, silence is your edge. It gives your mind room to breathe, to explore, and to evolve. It doesn't just sharpen your thinking, it transforms it. It takes your raw thoughts and hones them into insights, strategies, and solutions that stand the test of time. Quiet confidence commands respect because it speaks volumes without ever needing to raise its voice. It is the kind of presence that enters a room and draws attention, not by demanding it, but by owning it. People naturally gravitate toward those who are sure of themselves without being boastful, those who carry themselves with calm assurance instead of loud declarations. Quiet confidence is rooted in self-awareness, not ego. It comes from knowing who you are, what you're capable of, and not needing constant validation from others to prove it. When someone operates from a place of quiet confidence, they don't chase approval or compete for the spotlight. Their energy is steady, they listen more than they speak, observe more than they judge, and act more than they boast. Because of that, when they do speak, others pay attention. Their words carry weight because they aren't thrown around carelessly. People instinctively trust those who appear composed under pressure and humble in success. Quiet confidence earns that trust over time, not through flashy displays, but through consistent behavior and presence. Confidence that doesn't shout has an unmistakable power. It suggests experience. It signals discipline and depth. While loudness can sometimes mask insecurity, quiet confidence reveals inner strength. It says, "I don't need to tell you who I am, you'll see it." That subtle strength creates a lasting impression, one that lingers even after the person has left the room. It's the difference between noise and influence. Noise gets noticed in the moment. Influence is remembered. People respect quiet confidence because it often reflects integrity. It shows a person who is grounded, who knows their values, and who isn't easily shaken by opinions, praise, or criticism. These individuals are not easily swayed because they trust their inner compass. They don't react to everything. They respond with thought. They don't seek attention. They let their actions, consistency, and results speak for them. In doing so, they lead by example rather than by force. Leaders who display quiet confidence create stronger teams, healthier relationships, and more resilient outcomes. They aren't threatened by the success of others, nor do they need to prove they are in control. They simply are, and people follow that energy. They feel safe around it. They're inspired by it. Because quiet confidence doesn't dominate, it elevates. It also shows up in times of challenge. When things go wrong, it's the quiet confidence that holds firm, that doesn't panic, that thinks clearly while others scramble. That composure becomes a source of strength for everyone around. It becomes a lighthouse in the storm. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more examples of calm strength, steady leadership, and authentic self-assurance. Quiet confidence commands respect not by demanding attention, but by earning admiration. It doesn't speak to be heard. It speaks when it matters. And when it does, people listen. Silence guards your goals by creating a protective barrier between your dreams and the world's noise. When you keep your plans to yourself, you give them the space they need to grow without being judged, doubted, or distorted. The early stages of any goal are delicate. They are like seeds, easily damaged by harsh winds or careless hands. Sharing too much too soon exposes your vision to opinions, comparisons, and distractions that can weaken your focus or even derail your direction. Silence is your shield. It allows you to build in peace, to refine your ideas, and to develop your strategy without unnecessary interference. Too often, people talk about their ambitions before they've taken real steps toward them. They announce plans to impress others or to gain early praise, but in doing so, they trade momentum for momentary recognition. Speaking about your goals can create a false sense of accomplishment, as if talking about them is the same as achieving them, but it's not. Silence helps you avoid that trap. It keeps you grounded in action, not in appearance. When you don't feel the need to prove anything to anyone, you're free to move with purpose instead of performance. Keeping your goals quiet also preserves your energy. Every time you share your vision, you invite reactions, some supportive but many doubtful or dismissive. These responses can plant seeds of uncertainty in your mind, especially if you're still building confidence in your path. By staying silent, you protect your mindset from that noise. You avoid having to explain yourself to people who may not understand your journey, and you stay aligned with your own reasons for starting. Silence also keeps your intentions pure. When you work without without an audience, your motivation stays internal. You're not chasing applause, you're chasing excellence. You're not trying to be seen, you're trying to succeed. That kind of drive is stronger and more sustainable because it's not tied to other people's opinions or validation. It's rooted in discipline and desire, and that's the kind of drive that carries you through the hard parts of the journey, the parts no one else sees. Additionally, silence creates an element of surprise. When people don't know what you're working on, they can't anticipate your moves or prepare to counter them. You maintain a strategic advantage. You can evolve your ideas, shift directions, or launch something impactful without warning. And when your results finally speak for you, they hit harder because no one saw them coming. That unexpected success earns a different level of respect. It shows that you were focused while others were talking. Silence is not about secrecy for the sake of being mysterious. It's about giving your goals the dignity of privacy. It's about protecting your vision until it's strong enough to stand on its own. Not everyone needs to know what you're working on. Let your progress reveal itself in time. Until then, guard your goals with silence and fuel them with quiet, consistent action. You control the narrative, and that is one of the most powerful truths you can embrace. In a world where perception often becomes reality, the ability to shape how your story is told, first to yourself, then to others, gives you influence over how you're seen, how you're treated, and even how you experience your own life. When you choose silence over explanation and action over defense, you take full ownership of your narrative. You stop letting other people write your story for you. You stop reacting to their assumptions and start living by your truth. Controlling the narrative doesn't mean lying or pretending. It means being intentional about what you share, how you show up, and where you place your focus. Not everything needs to be explained. Not every move needs to be justified. When you learn to say less, you create space for others to wonder, to observe, and to reflect without interference. That space is power. It means people don't get to define you based on their limited understanding or fleeting opinions. They see what you allow them to see, and that is a form of control that protects your peace and preserves your direction. The story you tell yourself matters just as much. If you constantly replay narratives of doubt, failure, or insecurity in your own mind, those stories will shape your reality. But if you take control of that inner dialogue and shift it towards strength, purpose, and vision, everything changes. The mind believes what it's told repeatedly. So instead of letting your circumstances or critics narrate your path, you decide what the message will be. You set the tone. You become the author, not the audience of your own life. Others may try to define you by your past, by your setbacks, or by their own limitations. But when you control the narrative, you don't allow those labels to stick. You outgrow them, outwork them, and outlast them. You create new chapters by the choices you make and the consistency you show. People will always have opinions, but their opinions don't get the final say. You do. And the less you explain, the more mysterious your process becomes. That mystery becomes momentum. When you speak only when necessary and let your actions lead, your life becomes a quiet force. People may try to guess what drives you or where you're headed, but they won't be able to pin you down. That ambiguity keeps you in control. It keeps you unpredictable and respected. Those who move in silence often move with the greatest impact because they are not performing for the crowd. They are building in private. You control the narrative by knowing when to speak and when to stay silent, when to share and when to hold back, when to correct the story and when to let it unfold. You don't need to convince anyone of who you are when you already know it for yourself. Let your life speak louder than your words, and let the story you live be more powerful than the one anyone else could tell. Stillness breeds clarity because it removes the noise that clouds the mind and opens the space for deeper awareness. In a world constantly pushing you to move faster, do more, and stay connected at all times, stillness feels counterintuitive. Yet it is one of the most powerful tools for regaining perspective. When you pause long enough to be still, you allow your thoughts to settle, your emotions to stabilize, and your inner voice to rise to the surface. This is where clarity begins, not in the chaos, but in the calm. The mind, like a pool of water, reflects best when undisturbed. When you're constantly reacting to life, emails, conversations, problems, distractions, you become disconnected from your core. You start making decisions from urgency rather than understanding. Stillness interrupts that pattern. It gives you a chance to stop running long enough to ask, where am I going? Why am I doing this? What really matters right now? These questions don't come from movement. They come from moments of stillness, when you can hear your intuition louder than your anxiety. Clarity is not just about knowing what to do. It's about understanding why you're doing it. Stillness allows you to see beyond surface-level solutions. It helps you recognize patterns, trace your emotions back to their root causes, and separate your real priorities from the noise of the world. The busier you are, the more critical it becomes to stop and reconnect with your inner compass. Because without clarity, action can become wasted energy. You may be working hard, but in the wrong direction. You may be striving, but not progressing. Stillness helps you correct that course. This clarity isn't only about solving problems, it's also about creating vision. In stillness, ideas form, creativity flows. The next move becomes obvious, not forced. That moment of silence between action and reaction is where brilliance often lives. Some of the greatest insights don't come when you're trying to think harder. They come when you step away, when you breathe, when you allow space. That space becomes the container where new possibilities can enter. Stillness also sharpens your emotional clarity. It helps you respond rather than react. Instead of being tossed around by every thought or feeling, you begin to see them more objectively. You realize you are not your thoughts. You are the one observing them. That simple shift in awareness gives you power. It puts you back in the driver's seat of your mind. And when you're in control of your mind, you're in control of your life. The beauty of stillness is that it doesn't require hours of meditation or isolation. It can be found in a few moments of deep breathing, a short walk without your phone, a pause before you speak, or a decision to sit with your thoughts before reacting. In those small moments, you give yourself something priceless, clarity. And with clarity, every step you take forward becomes more meaningful, more intentional, and more aligned with the life you truly want to create. Results speak louder than words because they provide undeniable proof of commitment, capability, and action. In a world full of promises, plans, and opinions, talk is cheap. Words can inspire, but without execution, they are empty. What truly commands attention and respect is performance. What you actually do, not what you say you'll do. When you produce results, you no longer need to explain or justify yourself. The evidence is there, and it speaks for you with more power and credibility than any speech ever could. People often announce their goals, intentions, or talents in an effort to gain recognition or approval. But making noise doesn't create progress. Energy spent talking about success could be better invested in building it. When you focus less on broadcasting and more on executing, you create something far more valuable than attention. You create trust. People trust results, they trust consistency, and they trust those who let their actions reveal their values and vision. Every result you produce is a silent statement of your character. It says you show up when it's hard. It says you follow through when others quit. It says you don't need applause to keep going. That kind of quiet discipline builds a reputation that no amount of talking can buy. And when you consistently deliver, your results begin to precede you. People talk about you not because you've promoted yourself, but because they've seen what you've accomplished. That is the kind of credibility that lasts. Results also create internal confidence. When you see the outcomes of your own effort, you don't need external validation. You build self-belief through evidence, not affirmation. You learn to trust yourself because you've proven to yourself what you're capable of. That inner trust becomes fuel. It quiets the doubt, it sharpens your focus, and it pushes you to keep leveling up, not for applause, but for mastery. Sometimes staying quiet about your journey and letting the outcome reveal itself creates the most impact. There's something powerful about showing up with the win instead of talking about the process. People are often surprised, even shaken, when someone delivers without ever announcing their intent. That kind of silent progress creates an aura of strength and precision. It's not about hiding, it's about building in silence and letting the result make the noise. Even in adversity, results matter. They prove your resilience, your ability to rise, and your refusal to be defined by setbacks. They show that you didn't just talk about overcoming, you actually did it. That depth of character and follow-through sets you apart from those who only perform when conditions are perfect. In the end, it's not about what you promised, it's about what you produced. It's not about how many people believed in you, it's about how many lives were changed because you followed through. Words can start the journey, but results are what finish it. When you let your results speak for you, you don't need to convince anyone of your worth. they'll see it for themselves. Observation is a form of power because it allows you to see beyond the surface, to understand the deeper layers of situations, people, and events. In a world where so much is said and done in haste, the ability to quietly observe provides insight that others often miss. It is not about passively watching. It is about actively engaging with your surroundings in a way that gives you a clearer perspective. When you observe, you create an internal map of the world around you, which allows you to make informed decisions, avoid pitfalls, and seize opportunities that others might overlook. By observing, you gather knowledge without needing to speak, compete, or assert yourself. You learn through silence, patience, and attention to detail. This kind of power is often undervalued because it's not flashy or attention-grabbing, but it is incredibly effective. The person who knows how to observe well understands human behavior, social dynamics, and the subtle cues that guide conversations and outcomes. They know when to act and when to remain still. They can read a room before they speak, and they understand the unspoken currents beneath surface-level interactions. Observation gives you the ability to assess situations with greater clarity. In business, relationships, and leadership, understanding the dynamics at play can mean the difference between success and failure. Observing the way people respond to certain situations, the patterns in their behavior, or even the details in their environment, provides you with information that guides your actions. It allows you to anticipate needs, solve problems before they become crises, and act with precision. In social interactions, the power of observation can reveal far more than words ever could. People may tell you one thing, but their body language, facial expressions, and tone often reveal something entirely different. By observing these nonverbal cues, you can understand what others truly think or feel, even when they're not saying it outright. This allows you to respond in a way that aligns with reality rather than perception. In relationships, whether personal or professional, observation helps you connect with people on a deeper level, understand their motivations, and communicate more effectively. The power of observation also comes from the ability to learn without judgment. Instead of rushing to conclusions or reacting based on assumptions, an observer takes the time to process information and reflect. This creates a more thoughtful approach to decision-making. Observation helps you recognize when things are out of alignment, when there's an opportunity to step in, or when it's better to let things unfold on their own. It teaches you the value of patience and discernment. Furthermore, observing allows you to recognize trends and patterns that others might miss, whether in the workplace, in a creative endeavor, or in life in general. Noticing the smaller details gives you an edge. You begin to see connections between seemingly unrelated events, or understand the deeper motivations behind actions. This kind of awareness brings a strategic advantage because you don't react impulsively. You respond based on insight. In essence, observation is a quiet power. It doesn't need to be loud or aggressive to be effective. It's the ability to be present, to pay attention, and to use that awareness to navigate life more skillfully. It may not always be immediately visible, but its impact is profound. When you cultivate the ability to observe, you gain control over your environment and your decisions, and you unlock a form of power that is rooted in understanding. Silence reflects inner peace because it creates a space where the mind can rest, unburdened by external distractions or internal chaos. In the noise of daily life, it's easy to lose touch with our center, to become overwhelmed by the constant stream of thoughts, emotions, and responsibilities. Silence provides a reprieve, a moment to reconnect with a deeper sense of calm that exists within. It's in these moments of stillness that we can hear our true thoughts, discern our feelings, and experience a profound sense of inner tranquility. When we embrace silence, we allow ourselves to detach from the constant demands of the world. The world often urges us to act quickly, speak loudly, and react to everything happening around us. But silence teaches us to pause, to step back, and to let go of the pressure to always be in motion. In doing so, we create space for peace to enter. It's not about suppressing our thoughts or emotions, but rather about allowing them to exist without judgment or attachment. This is where true peace is found, not in the absence of feelings, but in the ability to sit with them without becoming overwhelmed by them. The power of silence lies in its ability to clear the mental clutter that so often clouds our judgment and sense of well-being. When we stop talking, stop trying to explain ourselves or justify our actions, we give our minds the space to reflect. In this space, the inner noise begins to settle and clarity emerges. It's like cleaning a dirty window. You can finally see through it clearly. In silence, we can listen to the subtle whispers of our intuition, which is often drowned out by the constant chatter of our busy minds. It's in these moments of quiet that we reconnect with our true self, with the calm that exists beneath the surface. Silence also fosters a sense of acceptance. When we stop constantly striving to change our circumstances or the people around us, we create an environment where peace can grow. Silence allows us to accept things as they are, without resistance or the need for control. This acceptance is a key component of inner peace. It doesn't mean we don't strive for improvement or growth, but it means we can be at peace with the present moment, with ourselves, and with the world around us. We learn to stop fighting against what is and start embracing what can be. The act of remaining silent, whether in meditation, reflection, or simply pausing before reacting, allows us to experience the present moment fully. In our modern world, we are often so focused on the future or caught up in the past that we forget to fully experience the now. Silence brings us back to the present, grounding us in the reality of the moment. In those moments, the constant pull of past regrets and future anxieties fades, and we can simply be. This state of being, without needing to do, achieve, or prove anything, reflects the essence of inner peace. In a world that often celebrates constant action and noise, silence is a powerful act of self-care. It is a declaration that peace is more important than external validation, that stillness holds more value than constant motion. When we choose silence, we choose to nurture our inner peace, to cultivate the calm that lies within. Silence is not the absence of sound, but the presence of calm. And it is through this calm that we truly reflect inner peace.